to gravitate for your seats. Meeting to order at 7:20. As I'm sure you noticed, we have a special guest today who is going to address us momentarily. So please join me in welcoming our Chancellor, who's coming to visit our Senate class for the very first time. Let's welcome Chancellor.
Well, thank you. I feel like. You hear me all right? No. I'm not sure to turn it on. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Can I just hold this up? Yeah, I want to make sure that that's better, right? Okay, good. So it's great to be with you and meet many of you just now. I came last year. I was here in early May. I was trying to remember when it was that I had an opportunity to talk to your predecessor, or at least in most cases your predecessors in this group. There were lots of issues that were being discussed that night. And I spoke a little bit about some of my hopes and aspirations, some of the reasons why I was so excited to contemplate both at that point moving here and taking on this huge honor to be the 10th chancellor of this great university. And since then, I've moved here, and I've been settling in. And the thing that has been really most remarkable is how welcoming the different members of this community have been to me. And I want to say, in particular, the students who I've met have just been, have made me feel ever welcome. And there have been times when, you're trying to find out how to get around, how to find your new life, the new habits of life, what the real core issues are in this university. There have been things that have been difficult to try to both understand and then engage in a serious and meaningful way. There's a history, as you know, of disinvestment on the part of the state. I've had encounters with the governor. I've had encounters with the legislators and with the regents. I was hired by one president, and this morning met a new president of the system. Been learning about the different campuses and the way this great university functions. But every time I feel, oh my goodness, this is bewildering, this is too difficult, this is going to be, in some ways, a challenge of a sort that is almost too daunting. I've gotten the sense of support and energy and an absolute commitment to the university, most of all from the students. So, the most exciting things that I've been able to do is have receptions for new students in our house, to try to learn how to give a cheer at the third quarter in the football games. I've gotten a few more pointers and serious instruction this evening. I'm going to work on that on Saturday. But I've also had students just randomly, introduce themselves, stop me on campus and say, "Hey, Chancellor," and introduce themselves, tell me a little bit about themselves, why they came here, what they're studying, what it means to be a student in this university. And I'm struck by several things. I'm struck by the fact that even at a point when the state is investing less than it ever has before in this university, and we are reliant ever more on philanthropy and tuition from you, there's a strong, strong belief that this is a public university, that education here is a public good, it's not just a private good. That there's a public mission that is shared by students, faculty, and staff alike, and alumni too for that matter. And that one way or the other, however this plays itself out in the political arenas, we are going to maintain the public character of this institution. And nowhere is this, I think, more eloquently expressed than in the incredibly strong role of student governance and the shared kinds of governance that students and faculty participate in with the real belief that you're part of the decision making at this university, from the Lower Sproul project to the regular meetings that I've been having with some of you and with EJ in particular. I have a sense that you have a stake in this institution that goes well beyond your sense that you're here just for 4 years. You establish a relationship with the institution early on that really is humbling to me and a constant reminder of why it is I am so thrilled to be here. Now, that's not to say that we don't have serious issues, and it's not to say that we may at times even come to disagree about certain ways of approaching those issues. But we can also point, even in the last 24, 48 hours, to the fact that we can also work together even at very difficult moments. Now, I was on the East Coast last week. I was addressing 2 different Cal alumni groups, one in New York and one in Washington. I met with a number of newspapers and press outlets, both in New York and Washington. I met with the Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan, and with the Undersecretary, Martha Cantor, who is especially responsible for higher education. I talked with them about President Obama's new concerns, not just about the cost of higher education, but about the way in which universities and colleges are ranked, and the efforts that are being made in the Department of Education to come up with a ranking system that better reflects the core values that would go into a public institution than is the case, for example, with much of the rankings that take place with US News and World Report, where if you do a correlation with the schools that are ranked at the top, you basically are doing a correlation with the amount of the endowment and the amount of private support that has existed for those institutions. If you look at the quality of research and the quality of, and the reputation of the university overall, actually, as you know, Berkeley does extremely well. But in the ranking systems that, like number 3 in the world, just to, yes, applaud your institution. But, when you look at the US News and World Report, we're number 20, which is the highest public institution. But what I think the people in Washington are working on is a way of better reflecting the things that they want to call attention to, and that, appropriately enough, maps very well on to the kinds of priorities we have. Graduation rates, diversity of the student body, particularly the representation of both underrepresented minorities, but also students from low-income families, the percentage of Pell Grant recipients, and other kinds of markers that don't get a lot of play in the US News and World Report ranking system, right? So I think that was a very useful conversation, and I was able to talk to some key alums, many of whom, it turns out, go to Washington to work as interns, and then to attempt to convert their educational experience, which in the case of Berkeley is both in the classroom and out of the classroom, to public service. So in Washington, and I saw the same thing in Sacramento, so many of you use your experience, and for example, in Washington, I had tea just before the alumni event with 5 alums, 2 of whom were former presidents of the ASUC. Right? I mean, so keep an eye on and this was just a group of 5, and they're there and they're trying to make a difference now nationally. but with a very, very strong sense of continued commitment to not only the education they had here, but also to the continuing struggles that we engage in trying to find and get support to do the things that we insist on doing, which is to say be great in our academics, have scholarly excellence in fields ranging from the professional schools to the PhD programs across science, applied science, social science, humanities, to do this for as many students from all kinds of backgrounds as possible, irrespective of their financial capacity to pay for the education that we offer. We know we don't do enough. We know that we actually have to work much harder because the tuition rates that have gone up so precipitously in the last years have put a real squeeze. They put a squeeze in the form both of making many students graduate with debt, and it's put a squeeze in terms of even middle-class families who seem to be doing reasonably well, not being able to come up with 4 years of tuition, not to mention how much it costs to live in one of the most expensive parts of the United States. I came from New York, it was expensive there. It's like that here. And so when you use national notions of financial aid support, and you add into this a very uncertain future for the kinds of interest rates that are going to be assigned to Pell Grants, which is another source of discussion. And next time I go to Washington, I'm going to try to meet Elizabeth Warren, who has been very concerned to keep those rates down. I know we have to work together to keep pressure on all of this, with, of course, the belief at the end of the day that if we could do it right, students would be graduating from this institution without debt. So you then would have even greater incentives and capacity to do whatever it is that you wanted to do afterwards. I mean, one of the problems with debt is that you've got to pay it off. Well, I guess that is one of the problems with that. I mean, I don't mean to be facetious, but it can inform the decisions you make about your subsequent career. And we think that you should be able to do whatever you want to do. And if you want to go off and do public service, and you know you're not going to get a lot of money for that, and you have a big debt hanging over you, you know that that is going to compromise your capacity both to do the things that will realize your hopes and dreams, but also to serve the public in ways that that we care about both while you're here and certainly after you graduate. So what I asked DJ this evening when we talked about my coming here was for us to reserve as much time for comments, questions, but also not just even questions, but commentary about some of the kinds of things that you're working on, some of the things that you're concerned about, and some things that we can then build into our regular meetings to ensure that we cover in the weeks and months ahead. We have been working together in ways that allow our standing meetings to incorporate different members of different groups who come and inform me about the work they're doing. We've been working together to try to make sure that the fireside chats that we inaugurated a couple of weeks ago in the House can be as inclusive but also as informative as possible for me as I start my role here. And I'm looking forward to having those regular, unscripted, informal meetings take on a variety of different subjects over the year. So this is an opportunity too for us to kind of set both the agenda in terms of who we want to include, who we need to include, and what we need to build into the agendas of our conversations, and then of course of the kinds of policies that we will develop together, both in the administration and here. Last thing I'll just say by way of update is that I met the new president, Janet Napolitano, this morning, along with the other chancellors of the other 9 campuses of the University of California system. And she apparently had a very cordial and I think productive meeting with a number of undocumented students yesterday. She took very seriously what concerns were raised. She's even been talking to the governor about a bill that's sitting on his desk that would actually help provide assurances of the safety of not just being on campus, but being in the state of California for undocumented students. One of the first things that I did, even before taking on the role of chancellor, was to tell then Chancellor Bergman that I was going to be continuing the support that he began in financial aid for undocumented students, and that we would be working in the next year to see if we could raise even greater resources. So that's one thing that I know is at the top of some of your deliberations, and I'm just telling you that I don't have any concrete things to tell you from talking with the new president this morning, but I know she listened, and I believe she's going to do some things that will be seen as extremely responsive to the kinds of concerns you've raised very directly with her. So I'm very hopeful that she will do that. I'm very hopeful that we will establish a tradition of dialogue that will include Berkeley students as well as students across the system with her, given her proximity. In particular, I think we need to just take advantage of her openness. And she will be coming to campus in the middle of November, and we'll be organizing ways in which students can talk to her directly, and that's at her specific request. So that much I think is a very positive report to bring back to you from my morning in America. So is it all right, DJ, if I open this up for questions, comments, and yeah. If you're DJ, will you call people for?
Yes, I'll let you moderate, and then if you want to keep it close to the.
Yeah, so I'll be taking questions from senators. Please raise your hand high so that I can see you. I saw Senator Quinn, Senator Mullen, Senator Iwana, Senator Tan, and then anyone else right now. Let's go that order.
Hello, Chancellor.
Hello, Chancellor. So I was wondering what your role was in the audit that the legislature is doing about UC Berkeley and a couple other universities about Title IX, and if you could speak to that.
Okay. First, as soon as we heard that there were issues, we began an internal review of all the protocols that are part of our response to sexual assault. And in fact, one of my associates, Associate Chancellor Linda Williams, who's in the back with me today, was responsible for initiating that review. And this was well before the audit was initiated. We are cooperating fully, of course, with the audit and seek to use that as an opportunity to make our review not only as thorough, but also as public as possible. And of course, I think we recognize that we were not as responsive as we needed to be. There are lots of things that we can certainly do better. And it is an issue that, it's of course not just here, it's at a number of campuses. I mean, it's become almost a kind of epidemic, which we must work on both from a campus point of view, but also I think nationally. So I've also been talking to other leaders of other universities about this. I mean, I talked with Peter Salovey, the new president at Yale, last week about it because they've had some serious concerns and issues on their campus. But just to show that different kinds of campuses, different kinds of environments, the same issues are here. I mean, I can't say anything more than that right now, but we take it very, very seriously. And with Linda Williams, who's now actually got a group of people working with her full time to make sure we don't let this slip. I'm confident that we'll come up with an action plan that we can implement fairly soon, and certainly we're cooperating fully with the audit. We'll let you know as soon as that's completed. Yeah.
Next on our speakers list is Senator Mullen.
Hello. Hi, Chancellor. So I do a lot of work around student safety, specifically around mental health. And I think there's a growing concern across the nation around students, specifically college-age students, around mental health and suicide being the number 2 cause of death among students 18 to 24.
Right.
In what ways do you think we can address mental health specifically as not necessarily a wellness component of the university and student life, but as a huge part of student safety, in ways that maybe we're struggling to identify the right resources? I think there's a lot of good work being done by individuals on campus, like meeting with associate deans, UHS, but I think there's a gap right now in the service in the way that we're addressing student health. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. But could you just say a little bit more about the when you say it's not an issue of wellness, it's an issue of safety? I mean, I hear you. I understand, but I don't know enough about.
So I think there's a huge focus on students' physical well-being,
Right.
healthy living, healthy eating, exercising,
Right.
opportunities of the RSF, and even around eating habits.
Yeah.
But I think there's a stigmatization issue of mental health specifically, which is creating a gap in student services in which students think they're being healthy because they had salad or they went on a run today, but they're really not addressing the mental health component of wellness. And I think it's the hardest to address. I think it's easy to say we can get students to the gym or we can change dining options, but how can we address this much harder, sometimes invisible
Right.
struggle that students are facing, and really destigmatize the fact that there's not a certain number of students struggling with mental health. Every student is struggling with mental health.
Yeah.
And it's a culture shift, but in what ways can we try and be the leaders in looking at mental health on campus, and suicide, as it is a huge issue on this campus.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, this is an issue that I had a lot of concerns about it at my previous institution at Columbia, where there were quite a number of suicides, and of course I came to learn both through that and through other things that are part of everybody's lives these days. The extent to which what you said is really almost an intractable problem. That is to say, almost everybody, particularly at certain ages of life, suffers depression or experiences depression. Actually, it's a fact of life in a kind of periodic sense. But depression has a number of effects, chief among which are a feeling that you can't take initiative, you don't know how or have the energy or the self-knowledge even at certain points of depression to know where to turn. And the stigmatization issue is still there. It's still there when somebody goes to visit somebody in the psychiatric services and worries about who's going to see them in the waiting room. And again, I don't know enough here yet to speak to what and how those things have changed, but I can tell you that at Columbia we mixed and matched the medical services in part to just completely obscure what particular issues we're bringing people to student health services. But even that, the health services, as you say, that's not enough. Awareness is not enough. It's a real struggle. One of the foundations that I became involved in New York is called the JED Foundation. I don't know if you know about it, but I was going to be talking with my staff since I just got an email from the head of that foundation. To get in touch with him, because it's a foundation that was set up, in fact, by a graduate of Columbia College, whose son committed suicide when in college, not at Columbia, somewhere else. His son was named Jed. And it's a large foundation that has been working with campuses on questions precisely of mental health related ultimately to suicide, but not just suicide, also just dropping out and dysfunction of different kinds. And I think they might be helpful. So that's a resource that I have in my background that I'm going to call upon and use to help me understand this issue better here. But I would love to hear more from you about it as well.
I believe next week have Senator Zimola and Tam. Before we proceed, maybe I have to call roll since we're at the meeting. So very briefly, Senator Chow, Senator Chung,
Here.
Senator Feynman,
Here.
Senator Zimola, Senator Kong, Senator Lee,
Here.
Senator Mohammed, Senator Senator Wheat.
Here.
Senator Wheat. President. Senator Chow. And Senator Shan. We're not great. We have strange rules about timing when I have to do roll call. But let's hear that from Senator Zibulman.
Very good, Chancellor. Good to see you again in front of us. I want to appreciate all the work that you're doing. I'm sure you're pretty tired from a long day today, but you still made the effort out to come talk to those students, so I really appreciate that. And I just want to talk about like two issues that students have been talking about a lot statewide. It's about affordability and accessibility. So affordability, you brought up earlier that like the state has lower funding, and that's definitely an issue that students have recognized and that students are organizing around statewide. And also the issue of like access, like actually being like, me particularly like understand like the low amounts of students that come on the campus. And I think students actually organizing around that statewide as well, addressing Prop 209, working on a Senate Constitutional Amendment 5 to actually change the California Constitution. For that, so like students are organizing around that called the Ignite campaign, invest in graduations, not incarceration, transform education. And so students statewide are working on this, and we want to know like how can we work more closely with you and other chancellors statewide to like address these issues that are going on in the state.
Great. Well, as I mean, we've talked a little bit about this before, and indeed, at the Regents meeting where you spoke last month, there was an exchange about the investment in higher education and the seeming relative importance of prisons to schools, and the governor was there. And we had an interesting exchange with the governor because, of course, he believes in education. But then he went on to say, we're spending additional money now on prisoners because there has been a suit, because there's been a federal injunction, and universities have to find ways to put pressure on governments to support education because it's such a high stakes game. There are so many needs that are out there, and when you're sitting in the governor's office, you respond to the greatest pressures. So I'm just saying what you're doing is great because the truth is we can do certain things. That is to say, chancellors and university leaders can do certain things, but students can, I think, play a huge role, both in creating public awareness about some of the issues and in putting just direct pressure on our electeds. Now, there are two propositions. I mean, I like Proposition 30, but I didn't like 209 and I didn't like 13. And those propositions have together eroded a great deal of the extraordinary legacy of the University of California. Not to mention the state of K through 12 education, which of course is vitally connected, as we know. The master plan was a plan that was meant to involve 3 tiers of higher education, but it was also meant to connect into the whole system of public education from kindergarten on. And so I think actually Prop 13 is directly connected to some of the issues that we're confronting, because it's not a demographic issue that leads to the outcome that 3% of our undergraduate students are African American. That's not a statewide phenomenon, but it is a testimony to some of the challenging environments in K through 12 education. But it's also a question about affordability, and it's about recruitment. And it's about questions of access that get as you know, as we've discussed, get complicated. Get complicated even when you have institutions like my old institution recruiting underrepresented minorities with better financial aid packages. We have to be competitive at a number of different levels, but we always have to be competitive in relationship to our values. And I think that may be the difference between a public notion of competition and a private notion of the market. So they're not unrelated, but they're differently conceived. And it's that kind of focus on the values that we have, which is to get a genuinely diverse student population, and then, having recruited a diverse population of students, ensuring that they get the best education, that they get the best kind of support, that they get more than just the opportunity to be a statistic and the claim that we're opening up the ivy towers of an institution to all kinds of students from all kinds of backgrounds. And that in some ways is even more complicated, because there also are questions of attrition and questions of graduation rates that we're not always as proud about as we should be. But the issues of the issue of affordability and access is an issue at all these different levels, and so addressing a couple of them is necessary. In order to engage in political mobilization, you have to actually choose one thing and have to work on it. So there's the opportunity to work on amending the Constitution with respect to 209. That would be a fabulous thing. I've talked to Barbara Lee about this, and she's very committed to working with you. I'm sure you know that, but that's one of the things that she has at the top of her agenda. In terms of Proposition 13, there have been efforts, including one that was spearheaded by a professor of linguistics here, George Lakoff, who described this to me at breakfast about a month ago, to try to find different ways to talk about what and how the state supports education in order to try to find ways to put ballots back on the agenda for the state to consider better support overall. I just, last night, when I was doing email back and forth, DJ was watching Inequality for All, the new Robert Reich film that just came out, which is terrific. I recommend it to all of you. It's showing down at the California Theater. But he makes clear that the kinds of issues that we're confronting here are actually national issues, and issues that really imperil the future of this country. So these are not just parochial issues here in the university. They're very big, but I applaud the work you're doing.
Senator Janet?
Hi, Chancellor Dirks. Thank you for being here. Today marks the second day of Filipino American History Month, and AB 123 was signed by Governor Brown today. AB 123 requires social sciences in the K-12 educational system to include the contributions of Filipino Americans in the farm labor movement in their curriculum. How will you ensure that educational curriculums such as Filipino history and language are preserved but also extended in our university?
Great question. At the first fireside chat, we had a little bit of a discussion about Filipino American or Filipino representation in both the student body and in the curriculum. It so happens that although I'm not a formal member of the Department of South and Southeast Asian Studies, I could be when I step down from this job, and my wife is a member of that department. And yet some of the issues here are not just about the old moniker of area studies, but they're also about actually reflecting the history of California itself, which the bill that Governor Brown signed today is in service of, I think, in a very direct sense. How to ensure that there are adequate resources for language, for cultural study, for historical work that would reflect in our curriculum the importance of Filipinos to not just the state of California, but to the world is something that I embrace as somebody who's worked on Asia all of my life and taught about various things in Asia all of my life. So I'll pursue this, and I know somebody I can pursue it with. Thank you.
So we probably have time for two more questions. I think in case that we're going to those who said we're choosing today. Probably that's all we'll have time for.
Okay. I'll be back. Don't. We'll do this.
Hi, Chancellor Dirks. Hi, Chancellor Dirks. I'll just speak without a microphone. Very nice to be here. Thank you for coming to address us and answer some of our questions. My question is regarding the formerly incarcerated community on campus, and I know that Destiny touched on some points of affordability and accessibility of folks that deal with incarceration and eradicate this in pipeline. My question is more in regards to the students that are already here and access that they have to resources. I work closely with the formerly incarcerated community. Myself, I'm not formerly incarcerated, but my father is incarcerated, and incarceration is an issue
have to thank you for your question. I have to say that I don't know very much about the student services specifically for incarcerated or formerly incarcerated students, and I need to learn more. So that's I thank you for your question. One of the things that I feel overall is that student services have to take into account populations that have students who have very different kinds of histories, backgrounds, challenges, and needs. And one has only to look at some of the, just even casually look at the statistics around incarceration to realize that there are zip codes and all sorts of sociological determinations that go into who is incarcerated and who isn't, who is suspected of crimes and who isn't. I come from New York with stop and frisk and so on and so forth. So these are issues that are specific to certain groups in disproportionate number, and which of course also reflects an epidemic of incarceration in this country, which is the flip side of the problem of investment in prisons rather than investment in schools. But if we're attaching the word stigmatization to certain groups, this is probably a group that has the most, or not. So I will follow up on this to be sure.
Hello, Jasper. Thank you for coming once again. My name is Solomon. So first, I have two sorts of questions. First, there are a lot of, middle-class students here at Berkeley who also have, financial needs. So because of the fact that they make over a certain dollar income or so, financially it doesn't cover the area. So right now I'm currently working on GRE, LSAT, and MCAT preps to see how we can help middle-class and low-income students in that same range. So that's my first question. My second question is regards to the incidents that happened, obviously, with us evacuating and also having class yesterday. So I do understand that I know your office and DJ put out a letter saying essentially that you acknowledge the fact that there was poor communication. But I think my dispute, as well as some of my constituents, was the fact that we still had school the next day on Tuesday, even though the fact that many people didn't know about what was going on, didn't find out until 5 a.m. So we felt that it should have been school because 11 classes and I think 11 buildings and 113 classes didn't have class, and that information wasn't disseminated across campus. So we felt it should have been a more homogeneous decision on that. So just to summarize, so my first question was about expanding middle class programs, and the second was about that decision.
Okay, thanks. First, on the question of middle class students, absolutely. I was extremely encouraged when I heard about the rollout of the middle class access program. MCAP is a terrific program. It was the first of its kind among for any public institution. It actually is something that we worked on at Columbia at an even more generous level, but it required funding, and it could only be funded by getting huge contributions from alumni, specifically for financial aid. And it turns out that students who get financial aid when they become alumni often are incredibly mindful of the extent to which their own education was dependent on financial aid, and then when they have the means, help give back. And this is one of my chief priorities, is to raise funds for financial aid. And that's why I spoke at the beginning about the problem of debt, because even when you build packages, financial aid packages that had debt as part of them, they cause problems for students, and it goes across the board. It's even, can you take advantage of certain kinds of opportunities, study abroad, internship, when you have work requirements that are also packaged. So actually, this is something I spent a lot of time working on at Columbia, and it's one of the reasons that I felt coming here, there'd already been a start that was very important, but it's still just the beginning. So I'm going to be working on that a lot. In terms of the decisions that were made about evacuation and then the resumption of classes on Tuesday, we are reviewing the whole chain of decisions that were made. From 4:45 when power went out to 6:45 when the explosion happened. That was one of the things that we put in the message last night that we take very seriously, that we're going to review not only the way decisions were made, but the way they were communicated. We are now sending out messages to faculty about holding makeup classes, about doing everything they can do to ensure that students who didn't get to class, weren't able to prepare for class, were in some way affected adversely by these events, will be able to catch up and make and recover all the momentum that was lost. Either way, we might have had problems if we called all the classes off on Tuesday morning to be consistent, because then we would have had more difficulty rescheduling classes, including possibly on weekends. But we were dealing with a situation, quite frankly, that we did not understand at the time, and the call for evacuation was about safety. And then the decision to resume classes was when we had decided that it was safe. And for those students who were coming to classes in buildings where there was power, we wanted those classes to resume as quickly as possible. But we recognized that there were lots of judgment calls that were made, often by those of us who were up all night. Not necessarily firing on all cylinders, to be honest, trying to figure out the best way to negotiate this at the same time that our primary concern all the way through is the safety of students. And thank God there was only one injury that was serious, and thankfully she's recovering very well right now. But we will be going back to ensure that we can learn from this. I mean, I actually spoke about this with the other chancellors this morning, and with President Napolitano, who knows a thing or two about emergency situations. And we're going to, try to figure out how we can use this as a way to learn for the next issue that we hope will never come, but we know usually does sooner or later. But anyway, thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you, Senators, for your questions, and thank you so much, Chancellor, for serving today. So as we continue our work on the agenda, we will move on with representatives to the ASUC reports. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Williams for the CPD representative report.
Even though first off, you guys all hear me? Yeah? Can you hear me now? Yeah. Take them on a Verizon commercial. Alright. We'll start off with the report of crime this week. Actually, things have actually dropped back down. And again, I say, without you guys as our partners, telling the constituents what's going on and all the little safety tips that we give you guys, there's no way we can control it without you guys. So I thank you guys for helping us. Bike thefts. Only 8 this week. I don't know if you guys remember last week. It was really high. It was like 15 or so. It was really high. There were only 3 laptop thefts and 1 phone theft. And other than that, that was nothing else. It was actually really, really quiet. So it was a good week for us. What I would like to talk about is who was around for the explosion. Anybody? Yes? Just one? Maybe only one? So, what I would say is if you guys didn't find out what actually happened, apparently there was a theft on campus. We have electrical vaults that are around campus throughout that power many of our buildings, and there was a thief who went in and actually stole some wiring, which caused a fault in the system. The first sign was the power outage. That was an indicator. We did not know at the time because it's not the first time that we've actually lost power. So it was a typical PPCS response, not a police or emergency response. When they tried to fix the problem not long after, because of that theft and the missing wire, was when the system gave, and that was the explosion. For those of you who were here for it, or saw it on the news, that's what you guys saw. Initially, again, nobody knew this was electrical in nature. What's the response when you see something like that? You've all seen Boston on TV. We went into protect mode. It was people coming in from around the Bay Area. We basically had a short shift of working. By the time the explosion went off, guys who saw it on TV, radio, we must have had about 15 officers come in. They're running around from working out and just showed up to go into protect mode and evacuate the campus to make you guys safe. And for us, I know you guys want to get in class because you're Berkeley. You guys are like, I still want to go take my test. For us, it's just about making you guys safe. Because we had no clue what was going on initially, other than there was a large explosion on campus. We didn't know there was going to be another one. We wanted to make you guys safe and get you as far away from our campus as possible until we can determine what happened. Other than that, that's all I have. You guys have any questions for me? I'm more than happy to answer. Yes, sir.
This is a really quick question about gas leaks that happened. There was an ammonia gas leak supposedly in the Latimer Hall. Was that related to theft?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir. Unrelated. Like the labs. So if you guys who actually work in the labs, it's unfortunate, but oftentimes there are things that happen because of, I would say, user error. People aren't typically used to the protocols that are put in place that you have to follow every single time. You can't deviate, or it could cause something as simple as a leak. Just unrelated.
So just to clarify, so this was a theft that happened on this is just her. I've heard through the grapevine that there's grid and stuff in the Berkeley Hills that also trickled down to UC Berkeley. So this was a theft on campus and not in the Berkeley Hills.
On campus property. So just so you guys know, our property extends ways. We have properties in Richmond, Albany, the Hills. If you've ever been on Grizzly Peak properties. So our property, when we say property, it could be any one of those areas. LBNL, we're everywhere. So the exact location, it could be more than one spot. It's still under investigation, but we've determined that that was a cause for the power outage which led to the explosion. Did I answer your question?
Any other questions for Dr. Williams? If not, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll run them all today to see Alex will be report. Just a gentle reminder for senators and for our speakers. The way that we're doing the recording on the camera now is that the camera that's recording for the podcast is plugged directly into the audio system, so it's picking up the sound from your microphone. If you're not speaking directly into your microphone, you are relying on the sort of ambient sound pickup of the microphones around you, and it's highly likely that you will not be audible in the recording. I just wanted to sort of make people aware of that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so my report this week will be short. Quick response to Senator Tan, your question last week about construction and the pod peoples. So in the event that construction occurs, they will move to North MLK next to the GDC. So staffing and hiring, next week and the following week, the auxiliary and the student affairs IT will be hosting on-campus interviews for 2 IT positions that will be focused on completing the TPT report item concerning the upgrading and unification of event planning services into the one-stop shop for students, student groups, campus, and the community. The graduate assembly will be hiring for 4 GA business office staff. The positions will be posted soon on Callisto and Workstudy, or you can email May Kim at officemanager@ga.berkeley.edu. Construction facilities. Last week and this week, the CSSB Business Committee heard presentations from 6 vendors regarding their intentions to vie for the bookstore to be housed in the renovated MLK building when it reopens, and discussions are ongoing on that one. Auxiliary had a great volunteer day at People's Park last Friday. So if you're passing by People's Park, you can see how beautiful some of the stuff we did. We put on a new coat of paint, we just put on some new planters, some side gardens, and then we also planted like a new east garden on somewhat the south side of the park. Lead Sim, it's happening October 20th. We are at 80% full, which is great. We're always looking for more students, and registration will close in 2 weeks. Also, we are still looking for presenters up to next week. So again, we're looking for action-oriented around leadership development. And then finally, I will be out for the next 2 weeks, so Amanda or Chris will be here to present for the auxiliary in my stead. Any questions?
Senator Rowland?
Hi, Rob.
I was just wondering if you knew, I forgot the coordinator for the lead symposium. Nobody and I submitted for to hold a workshop, but I haven't been contacted yet. So I don't know what the follow-up process looks like in regards to timing and confirmation.
So presenters are still open. We're looking to contact presenters by early next week.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I saw Senator Lee.
I was also wondering if they could register for the lead symposium, if they have to leave like in the middle of it or after they go.
That's fine. They probably won't be able to get lunch though, but it's fine.
And then I had a second question. I was just wondering if you knew for student spaces that you can't reserve through event services, where like for example Speaker Plaza in front of Haas Pavilion, how do you go about reserving those sorts of spaces?
I will write that down and get back to you on that.
Any other questions for Rob? If not, thank you so much, Rob. So we'll move into our Berkeley ASUC Commercial Student Services Board report. I don't think we have this week that comes up in the meeting since the last report. There is no report there. We'll move on to briefly address the finance officer's report. You'll find that under your tab on reports in your binder. Dennis was not able to stay in past week, so he has submitted his written report thoughtfully in advance to make sure that you all have it in case he wasn't able to speak. But please do consult that report. Email him if you have any questions. So moving on from finance officer report, we move into guest announcements and public comment. We have one public comment card from Kyle McCoy to talk about affirmative action bill, and so he'll speak briefly on that for not to exceed 2 minutes.
Good evening, Senate Chambers. I would just like to say that I am affiliated by any means necessary, and we have submitted a bill to the Senate to be hopefully on the committee for this coming Monday. It's a bill to fund for student funding for students to fly to Washington, D.C. For the affirmative action trial in case that will be on October 15th, 2013. And also, we are trying to see if you will be able to fund for at least 20 students. But if you're not able to do that, to go to Washington, D.C., I would just please, if you just have any funding for posters and boards that that would be helpful for our trip. That would be great. And also, I just wanted just to read this little statement right here, based on President Johnson's quote right quick. Freedom is the right to share fully and equally in American society. To work, to hold a job, to enter a public place, to go to school. It is the right to be in every part of our national life. As a person equal in dignity and promise to all others. You not take a person who for years has been, that is it. It is not enough to open the gates of opportunity. All our citizens must have the ability to walk through those gates. And what I'm saying is, this is an education public place, as you just heard from Chancellor Lewis. And I just wanted just to say that if you could please address this issue, and this is really important to us as to our minority community.
Great, thank you. We've already done roll call, so we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from September 25th, 2013. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from September 25th, 2013.
I move to approve the minutes.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, objections? Any abstentions? Okay, seeing none, the motion carries. So the minutes for September 25th have been approved. We'll now move on to new business. Before I'll propose the list of bill allocations, I'd just like to state briefly, and I think all of the execs can probably agree on this, is that if you're going to allocate assignments to us just as a matter of like courtesy and in the spirit of collaboration, please do consult with us before you write a bill that gives us a bunch of different mandates to do. It's very helpful for us to have that kind of heads up so that we can discuss feasibility with you and talk about possibly the best course of action to take. And I think again, just in the spirit of collaborating with us, that would be great. You're not required to do that by any means. The bylaws don't require you to do it. I'm just requesting, just as a matter of courtesy and in the spirit of helping us not be constantly overwhelmed and keeping us in the loop, if you can do that for us. With that said, let's move into assigning bills. So the chair would like to entertain a motion to send SB 20 to Constitutional Procedural Review Committee, SB 21, SB 26 to the Finance Committee, and SB 22, 23, 24, and 25 to the External University Affairs Committee. Is there a motion? SB 20 will go to Constitutional Procedural Reviews, SBs 21 and 26 will go to the Finance Committee, and SB 22, 23, 24, and 25 will go to External and University Affairs.
I move to adopt it as the chair stated.
It's a move. Is there a second? It's a move and seconded. Are there any objections to the motion as stated? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. With that said, we'll now move into the approval of the agenda for October 9th, 2013. It's printed at the end of the current agenda. We return back to the normal start time, which is 7 o'clock instead of 7:20. Other than that, it's the normal agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for October 9th?
Motion to approve the agenda.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any objections to the motion? Any abstentions? Great. Seeing none, motion carries. Let's move now into executive officer reports. We're starting a little bit later than normal. Again, I'm thrilled that we have the Chancellor to speak to us, and now we're just a few minutes behind. So I do want to remind everyone that we do have special orders tonight, and hopefully we can sort of power through the next few minutes so that we can allow the community members to speak to us. I also don't want to hold our executives here for too long, so let's welcome President Pepito for a report.
This is so tall. Okay, hi, senators. So tomorrow, my office will be holding the Dean of Students Forum tomorrow from 5:30 to 7 in Unit 1 APR. I, along with a couple of the other search committee members, including Associate Vice Chancellor Andaluca, and then Linda Williams, who was also here tonight, and the Director of the Career Center, Tom Devlin, will all be there to hear out students, hear concerns, and ask questions about what you all want to see in the next Dean of Students and what you hope that person to accomplish within the next several years that they would be here. So please help me advertise and outreach. The flyer's on Facebook. I'm sure you've seen it. Please, please, please invite your constituents. There's going to be light refreshments there. And yeah. Other than that, everything's pretty self-explanatory within my report. So if anyone has any questions.
I'm sorry for to say this, where do you say it's going to be at again?
What's that?
Where do you say it's going to be at again?
Unit 1, APR.
Thank you.
It's in my report.
Are there any other questions for President Pepito? Great, thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move down the list. Let's go to Thursday, Valerie Davidson.
been more so like internal development of projects, not necessarily like business meetings heavy, just because I am recovering from being sick. One of the meetings I did have, however, was with Christian Teeter, who works directly under Kathy Koshland, and it's in regards to the safety committee, so the Student Advisory Council for Undergraduate Education, which is more so just like a general advisory council. The majority of students talking about different issues. We looked at solidifying the calendar for the remaining semester, as well as like having students know that they can have the agency within that space to solicit stronger input to the visitors. Because if we want to make it a proactive space, and in order to do so, we need the students who are in the committee to also be more proactive in terms of providing more substantial questions or remarks or productive criticisms. Also, I did have my standing meeting along with John Reddy of the GA with George Breslauer. We talked candidly about, Janet Napolitano's appointment and what's to come, and especially more so about the UCOP structure, which I think we don't have a lot of background knowledge around. So hopefully in the future we can do a lot more fleshing out and unpacking who is behind UCOP. Because I think now we can put a face to Janet Napolitano as one of the figureheads, but within that larger structure, who else is making decisions and also allocating funds or whatever they may be doing within the larger UC Regents context, as well as talking about labor issues and different fundraising models. So he did give me, which is public knowledge, but the university budget planning packet, and we just talked more further in depth about where is money going and more so inquiring about those issues. Apart from that, everything that's mentioned, so gearing up for CAPSIS proposals, which will be, the deadline is coming up in 2 weeks, as well as potentially revisiting some projects that have been done in the past AEDP offices around bringing back and revising the 6th grant. So if y'all have any questions about that, please let me know.
Do we have any questions for our academic affairs vice president? Senator Pacheco?
In terms of appointments for the grants, how's that working out? So as of now, the grants with the highest applicants have received introductory emails to begin meeting. If you haven't received that email, it's because there isn't a large enough volume of applicants for that to be conducive of your time, because also wanting to be understanding that senators are really busy. So if you're for example, you want MCF doesn't have the volume of applicants that would call for a committee meeting at the moment.
Other questions? If there are none, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to our external affairs vice president, Amy Fly.
Hi, everybody. So I left out a lot of stuff on my report, so I apologize, but not intentionally, mostly because it recently happened where I needed to talk about it in person. But that being said, still read it because it has a lot on it. The Students of Color Conference is coming up on the weekend of November 15th, 16th, and 17th. The application for that is finished, but will become live as a Facebook event and an email that you can circulate to your constituents tonight. So I'll email that to you and please pass it on. The due date for the application is most likely going to be October 13th. So that's changed from what it was previously. So for those of you that don't know what the Students of Color Conference is, it's a UCSA conference specifically designed to allow for organizing around issues that affect primarily students of color. That being said, all students are welcome to apply and attend the conference, and it's a really great way to meet with other activists and student leaders from across the UC. Also, Ignite will be a big focus of the Students of Color Conference. So if you have been or know people who are actively involved with the Ignite campaign, be sure to recommend that they apply to attend. Today, I met with the president and executive director of ASME 3299. So for those of you that don't know, ASME is the union that represents our service and student care workers. They're an incredible ally to students, so the workers that you see around campus are generally represented by ASME. And they've worked with us a lot in the past, especially the past Prop 30, to prevent tuition from rising. And so I met with them today to talk about our collaboration in the future, system-wide. And it was a really productive meeting. We talked about how students can help in the response to implementation, which happened. We also talked about a worker speak out event that's planned that we'll be doing on campus on October 17th. So if you are interested in student labor relations or are interested in connecting with some of the leadership of ASME to set some visioning for our collaboration in the year, please let me know, because they're really open to meeting with you all and talking to you all about what you foresee our relationship looking like. And so that also correlates with, we helped to organize some folks to go to the ASME Action and the picket line that happened at the UC Office of the President, and we'll be following up on more action to ensure that the UC is held accountable for unfair bargaining practices. So thank you to those of you that made it out to that as well. Our lobby corps received a lobby training from UCSA, and it was great. In the past, we haven't had excellent lobby trainings from UCSA, so this was actually really surprising and wonderful to have a really great lobby training. So if you all are interested, and you can kind of nod if you are, I was thinking about maybe setting up some kind of Senate lobby training. Yeah, okay, so I'll follow up with that and we'll keep back and see how we can schedule that with you all. So National Voter Reg Day went really well. It's really difficult to get students to register to vote in non-election years. That being said, thank you to you all for kind of spreading the message and for helping us table. And we have kind of a series of other voter reg events planned, but if you also have ideas for voter reg, I'd love to hear them. On October 18th from 6 to 8 p.m., the Public Service Center is holding an event with a UN speaker about solitary confinement as a practice in prisons. And so this event is being co-sponsored, possibly I think by the Ignite campaign, also by our office. I'll send you more details and invite you all to the Facebook event, but that's a really cool event in which we're bringing an international speaker to talk about a really unfair and immoral practice and how we can be involved in reform of that. So definitely try and make it out for that. Our climate change panel went really well. We had some really excellent speakers who were involved in drafting reports for the UN, who gave a lot of information about how students can be active in preventing climate change and in climate change activism. So if you're interested in hearing more about how that went, please. Okay, last couple things. There is a UCSA board meeting this weekend. The agenda is posted. I put the link on my report. But if you have questions or want to talk to me about how I present anything, you all have mandated me to present a couple resolutions, which I'm happy to do. But if you do want to talk about any of that before the meeting, please just give me a call or shoot me an email and we can do that. But I will be talking about the Napolitano resolution that we passed, the Ignite resolution that we are going to pass, and the Prop 13 resolution that was passed. So all of that will be covered at the meeting. Okay, last thing is UCSA leadership is meeting with President Napolitano on October 8th. And so I'll be sending you all what our tentative agenda for that meeting is. If there are concerns that you would like me to bring up with her or things that you want me to make sure to cover in that meeting, please let me know. Just as a reminder, I'm going on behalf of UCSA, not just UC Berkeley, so preferably these would be system-wide issues, and then we can continue to address Berkeley-specific issues when she comes to campus mid-November. But if you do have things that you want me to bring up with her, also I'll be happy to kind of report on how that meeting went after it happens. But that's all, so I look forward to questions.
Any questions for you? Fine. All right, thank you. So let's welcome somebody for we're looking at kind of reaching out this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello everyone, Tim is sorry he can't be here today. He's with his family who's in town for one night. So, a couple of quick updates. We've had a series of meetings this week, the most important of which was a panel discussion with the folks that are involved in and engaged in sexual assault policy on the university campus. So, our divisions that are working on these issues, we met with the ASUC who runs Title IX and the different folks that are running those programs to talk about how policies are integrated from Title IX to our conduct process to the hearings that they go to eventually if they do. So, seeing where the gaps are and assessing those was what we did yesterday. Big update. So the university has a new sexual assault policy that the Center for Student Conduct released earlier this week. I urge you all to check it. I urge you to read it and think about what are some of your concerns. Our office already put together our concerns and are voicing them actively, and we'll be voicing them, throughout this coming semester. But I want you all to be cognizant because this is addressing some of the big federal compliance issues that the state audits can be looking at. So if that's an interesting issue for you, read that policy and check it out. In regards to the power outage, one big concern for our office was midterms that were continued when the power outage went off, and students that had to stay in and finish midterms. Clearly, in that situation, it's not an equal playing field for all students, so academic performance of those midterms were jeopardized and really shouldn't go towards a grade. So that's a big issue for us. If any of your constituents have that issue, please contact me. We're consolidating reports and have a lot of reports already flowing in about that, and we're trying to aggregate them to present a kind of united front on this issue. Lastly, banking stuff is picking up full steam. I'm going to send an email right when I sit down now with a spreadsheet which has all the products being considered, and another spreadsheet which outlines my concerns and what I think you all should be thinking about. Basically, that spreadsheet will say a product, like say a debit card, and I want you to let me know what your comments are on that specific piece, whether you think it should be marketed to students or whether you think students should not be marketed those products at all. And let me know that so I can funnel your feedback to the banking committee. So right now, the RFP is going to be developed and finalized by the 31st of October, so it's moving really fast. One issue that was brought up at the last meeting that I want to bring up to you all, that's a big concern of mine, is an issue with checking accounts being connected to Cal One cards, where you can opt into a checking account through your Cal One card. The issue with that being is that in the past, when this has happened, the university would get basically get some money for every student they register with a checking account, right? So they'll get, say, $10 per head, right? Problem with that, of course, is the university has an incentive to do that. It can lead to some adverse outcomes. So it's a big concern of mine, and I want you all to be thinking about that. And I've included that all in the email I'll send out right after I sit down. So that's the extent of the updates from our office. Any questions?
Questions to this do not make the topic. Awesome. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for talking to us, Rishi. When Tim spoke, he said that there was going to be workshops being held. Wondering how those are going.
Yes, the panel trainings?
Yeah.
So the panel trainings are continuing. Right now, we really need some more folks. So there's one scheduled for this Friday, but thank you for reminding me, no one has signed up. So if any of you have constituents who want to serve on these panels, please email me tonight. Because it's going to be canceled, the training on Friday if they don't get any more responses. This is a great opportunity. You get to sit on the committees that decide whether students are found responsible or not responsible of the code of conduct. And I think you all have folks in your communities that are interested in this. So please email me tonight if you're interested in that.
Senator Mullen.
Hi, Ricky. I had a question. You said the Center for Student Conduct released this policy. I'll definitely look at it. My question is, do you know in any ways how the policy was formed with students or in regards or in response to that matter?
Yeah, so combination of both. So the Center for Student Conduct realized that there's a glaring hole in how they were operating and what was actually codified in terms of the process. So they kind of said, look, we're following the law in our practice, we just don't have it written down anywhere. So for them, this was just writing down what their existing policies were in a more organized way, or that's how it was framed, and as just a firm codification of what they believe to be their federal regulations and guidelines. So it wasn't a student input-driven process. That being said, we meet with them every week to talk about what our concerns are, and we've been airing our concerns on that specific policy as they've come up. And if you have concerns, please read that document and send them to me so we can bring them up at our standing meetings.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to run for really briefly. If you need updates on progress, I have the written report there. What I want to do here is go over some things that I've been getting questions about so that we can really clarify on that. So I have 6 things. First, for people whose Senate pages are not complete, or if you want to make any amendments to your existing Senate page, please email them directly to the webmaster at this point. I was doing it myself because we didn't have a webmaster before, but if you email them to webmaster@ASUC.org, I'm sure that Matt will fix it quickly. Number 2, on classroom reservations. If you refer to your other tab, that's tab number 5, I've attached a memo that I sent to Walter while I'm the registrar on campus, and so I've been getting some questions about what's going on with changes in the classroom reservation system for many people. But I want to give you a little bit of an understanding of what's going on there. So EVP, our Student Spaces branch, is working with academic affairs to collaborate on student group space but also academic space. And so in my last meeting that I had with the registrar, I came in as EVP with a very student group oriented perspective, and he came back at me and said, well, this is not just a student group issue. Actually, the biggest reservation use of classrooms on campus is for academic study space, and so that's why I brought Valerie into it. We're going to work together to find a system that works for both purposes, but we are moving forward with that and building on the work that's been done. So a little bit of background, there is $1 million sitting there to purchase a new event management system for the campus. And it's been a couple of years now, we're pushing really hard to make sure that this moves forward. Event management systems are very expensive, they don't get replaced very often, and we're doing the best that we can to make sure that whatever the campus buys is something that can communicate with what event services is using so that there can be changes to the way we reserve space. For example, what I recommended in the memo is that during the day, the registrar take care of reservations for academic purposes, and then at a certain hour, say 6 or 7 p.m., certain buildings, I recommended specifically to Lamel, Evans, Wheeler, and Barrows, transfer over to event services control, and event services would manage the booking of those spaces as well as the cleanup of those spaces, right? If you want details, all of that is in this memo that I've outlined, and sort of objections to the current model that's very surveillance-oriented and makes students uncomfortable, as well as an alternative service-based model there. That's sort of what's going on with the negotiating with the administration. We have a funding model, we have a path forward. What we really need at this point, and the best way that we can help, is to put your community members in contact with the EVP Student Spaces group so we can do focus groups and talk about people's experiences, where the shortcomings have been, what has worked well, and we can come up with creative solutions that we will integrate into a broader proposal that we can move forward with. It can be difficult for us if people are going to administrators directly and starting the same conversation that's happening already between the Graduate Assembly, the ASUC, and the administration, only because it can confuse the people in the administration, right? We're all from the ASUC. I think they see us as like some amorphous law, and it's like we need to clear channels of communication is important in this issue. Also on student spaces, if your student groups or communities have questions about student spaces, Ismail is your go-to person. Whether a student group needs a new key because they lost the key to their space, or they just have general space inquiries, he is like the center for information on student space related things. And so I just wanted to put that out there because I've got several questions about student space. On the wiki and the student resource portal, those projects are being run out of the programs and development branch of the EVP office. And we're in a stage right now where we're collaborating with the Lead Center on institutionalizing both projects. There's basic programming, there are beta versions that are in progress right now, and our goal is to have like really solid beta versions launched by the beginning of spring. Similarly with the space reservation thing, we really need help on collaborating on focus groups. We want to know what students want in a resource portal and what kind of things they would prioritize if they wanted information in a wiki. The best delivery systems or existing online models that do this information delivery well. So the best way to help with that is if you have community members who are enthusiastic about performing the way that we transmit information and that sort of thing, it would be really helpful for us to set up these sort of focus groups to begin talking about and imagining what those systems will look like when they're perfect, right? We're going to do the best we can with the data version, but the goal is to institutionalize these as part of the Lead Center as an ongoing way to keep the projects, and we want to have some ideal version to work for. Less related to any questions that I've gotten, but just about public notice. Hopefully you all saw Lizzie's email about the meeting table that's now online, and so we're doing our best to fill that out so that people have like a month-long or longer view of all the meetings that are coming up, where and when they will be, the agendas will be added there. We do need help from the committees and committee chairs to make sure that we are putting the agendas for the committees up in time to adequately give public notice to people so they can see what's going to be on the agenda, and also to make sure that we're getting the minutes in a timely way so that the minutes can be posted to that page as well. That will be with everything about the committee meetings, the Senate meetings, and so forth, agendas, minutes, and the recordings. Podcasts will also be posted on that table as well. Questions about that?
So we should always see Jordan and you then, like on the agenda we send out to our committees?
We'll work out the way with Jordan to integrate those, but I would say probably rather than me, Lizzie has been working with Matt on the table, and so just consult with her to see what the best way to use that.
In terms of Conrad, because we have interviews coming up and they were postponed because of Monday, we were going to find an alternate time. Would we need prior notice because it's not a Conrad meeting, but it's just interviews that we're having?
So technically, Conrad, as a committee, does take notes of interviews. So you will have to give 48 hours notice in order for the actions of the committee to be official. Technically, if you're doing the interviews and not making a decision, I mean, it's sort of ambiguous. I would recommend that. I think just being like transparent and forthright about it is the best way to do it. So if you can give 48 hours notice, that's preferable. You must give 48 hours notice if you intend to take any sort of action in the meeting that will be binding. And so if you're trying to find an alternate time, like And the last thing on my list of things that I wanted to bring up is that UCPD is asking about having an open house where the senators would go and see presumably UCPD's operational facilities, that sort of thing. I gave them two options in terms of how we would do this, and they haven't responded yet, so I want to talk with you about what we prefer. It seems like the best times for people to do these sorts of things are either right before the Senate, or we would have to recess during Senate, go do that, and then come back. So between those two options, like a 6 to 7, or like a half-hour, 45-minute recess in the middle of Senate, which of those is preferable for you? Silent straw poll. Before Senate, it's like straw poll before Senate. Yes. Yeah. So the 6 to 7 block as opposed to the middle of Senate recessing. And then people who would rather have it during the Senate meeting as like during recess. Okay. Well, it looks like most people want to do it before, but I'll see what I can work out with UCPD and there's perhaps a different day than Wednesday. Honestly, like, it can be very difficult to get all the senators in one space outside of their meeting.
I'm not saying I have intentions of missing it, but is it going to be mandatory or?
No. It's an invitation from UCPD, and so it's not something that will count towards an attendance. It's just something that if they're going to put together the time and energy to show us their stuff, I would really prefer that lots of people come because otherwise it's not necessarily a great experience.
Understood, thank you.
Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, I don't want to disagree, but I was going to comment on that. I was going to say I think it's time we prefer it every time people, well, everybody would go to me, so I was going to say recess would be more preferable. I mean, it would be more the time where everybody would make, whereas 6 to 7 we may not be able to make it. So it's most of the time on that.
So I'll see what I can do in terms of timing. If we are going to go the recess route, I will do my best to make sure that we're planning on a very short meeting that week with no special orders of any kind, so that community members time back, that sort of thing. That's all I have on those things. Oh, okay.
Well, this question is for going back onto the event services and room reservation. Is your office working to have the room reservations cover all the spaces on campus, including HOS? Because at this point in time, a lot of our business organizations are suffering because if you're not HOS sponsored, they don't give you access. And so if we have like an interval one, it would be better.
So the first step in that system is getting the unified event management system. It's impossible for the systems to communicate unless we have that. So like HOS has one system, there's a different one in Worcester, there's one in Well, and some other block of buildings use, right? These systems don't communicate with each other, and you have to call or book with someone separate in order to reserve those spaces. And so, like politically, HOS will have to work out within itself whether or not it wants to give access to those spaces to students, but before we can even have that conversation about reserving for event services, something in HOS, we have to get a system that can communicate with our system.
Okay, thanks.
You mentioned the redesign of the space reservation online resource. Is that going to be part of SIS or is it going to be managed separately?
Probably it's going to be part of SIS. What we're talking about is something that's related more to the purchase of the new event management system and what that's going to look like and what students need in that system.
Okay. Is DJ in conversation in that conversation?
We actually, in just a moment, are going to motion that special order of SIS. So, 12 seconds left.
I was going to ask about the students that who are we getting in contact with? No, I mean for in terms of the group in terms of asking, say again, what is the student in contact with?
Right, yeah, so the office is going to be coordinating focus groups. Let's talk offline. I'll send an email out about how you can best do that and who you should contact if you want to set up a focus group for your community and their experiences. So if I have time on this, please always feel free to approach me with questions afterward. We now move to appointments. I don't think there should be any since no committee is convened to recommend any appointments. And with that said, we'll move into special orders. Before we start special orders proper, I do want to entertain a motion to have a special order on SIS as requested by President Trujillo for next week. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any objections to the motion? Okay. Any abstentions? Great. Okay. Motion carries. With that said, I'd like to welcome Berkeley Connect for their presentation. They have a video to show us. If you want to come just talk to the Senate first.
everyone. I'm Professor Maura Nolan. I'm from the English department, and I'm here to talk to you about a new program that's starting in January 2014 called Berkeley Connect. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to talk to your constituents about it and encourage them to sign up and join us. What you're seeing on the screen here, if you scroll up a little bit, you'll see this is our website. And Berkeley Connect started in the English department as a pilot program called the Churn-In program. I don't know if any of you here are English majors or participated. And its history is interesting because the Churn-In program was funded by Peter Chernin, who is sort of a Hollywood bigwig. He was the head of 20th Century Fox. And he was also a Berkeley alum. He graduated in 1974 as an English major. And he was very unhappy when his son came here in probably the late 90s and left after 2 years to go to USC because he felt that he felt like one of a number. He didn't feel he had any personal contact with professors. He didn't feel that anyone knew him, and that he generally felt that very alienated and isolated here. And so Peter, who was a very unusual guy, instead of saying, well, I'm going to give my, he has lots of money to give, and so I'm going to give my money to USC, where my son had a good experience, said, I'd like to help undergraduate education at Berkeley. And so what we did in the English department was design a program that would act as a pilot program, and that hopefully, after a couple of years of success, we would expand to other departments on campus. So the goal of Berkeley Connect is to combine what we're calling the intellectual firepower of being at a world-class research university, which Berkeley is, with the smaller community environment that you get at a liberal arts college or a private school. We felt that students really deserve the chance to, for example, in English, have small groups of students that they meet with rather than always being in an English class. And we started the program in 2010. And we got lots of student feedback. We generally have around 230 to 250 participants. It's a course. You get a course credit for it, and that's true of Berkeley Connect as well. And the way that it works is that each student who participates is assigned to a mentor. And these mentors are advanced graduate students in the department or recent Berkeley PhDs from the department. They are also placed in a group of between 15 and 20 students that is led by the mentor. And the faculty director, who is me in the case of the Churn-In program, but we'll have 10 of them starting in January. The faculty director, along with the faculty team, designs a syllabus. And the syllabus has 4 kinds of events on it. So the first thing are what we call small group meetings. And this is every other week during the semester. Small groups of students meet with their mentor to talk about topics that are relevant to the major, and but also about skills that you need for college generally. So these are, in English, we did topics like keywords for English majors. We got some feedback from students saying, especially beginning junior transfers and freshmen, saying, I sit in lectures by professors and I'm constantly looking up words. I don't know all the words that they're using. They're unfamiliar to me. Or if I do know them, I feel like the professor is using them in a way that I'm not familiar with. So that was one topic we did. We did visuality in literature. We did film in literature. We had a topic called just what is the English major? Why does the English major exist, and why, and why is it taught the way it is? And one of the things students did was look at requirements for other English majors at different schools and say, well, why is it that Berkeley chooses to arrange its English major this particular way? These small group meetings are a chance not for the mentors to talk to the students, but for the students to talk together. And the goal of the meetings is for students to get to know other students in their major. One of the things that I teach one particular class in English that has about 100 students. And I really noticed after I taught it for a while that when I said, lecture is over, everybody just got up and left. Nobody hung around, nobody seemed to talk to each other. It seemed to be really hard for a lot of students, especially new students, to get to know people who were interested in the same major that they were a part of. So Those are the small group meetings. The second thing that we do is one-on-one meetings with the mentor. And so on the off weeks, when students aren't having their small group meetings, the mentors have office hours, and students can just show up and chat about anything they want to talk about. But we also have two official meetings that are one to say, just get to know you, so each mentor has a personal connection with each student. And then we have another meeting right before course selection, before telebears. And this is for students to have a chance to talk about the classes they're selecting, and not only in the major, but we also ask our fellows to look at cognate majors. So to take English as the example, we ask the fellows to be aware of what classes there are in rhetoric, comp lit, French, German, history, courses that English students might be interested in, so that if a student comes to you and says, you know, I love the Renaissance, I took a Shakespeare class and I just want to learn more about the Renaissance, you might be able to say, well, here are the English Renaissance courses being offered, but look, over in history, there's an early modern history class. Or in French, there's a course that is related to the English Renaissance. So those are one-on-one meetings with the mentor. And third, we have every other week are the small group meetings, and then on the off weeks are not only office hours by the mentors, but a whole series of special events. And these events really range in type. So we have informal lectures by professors, and we try to help professors to understand that these lectures are not like you're talking to a class. So you're not going and giving, you know, the lecture you gave on Shakespeare earlier that day, you're not repeating it in this lecture. We have topics like the book that made me a professor, which is one that I'm doing tomorrow night actually, because most English professors had one book that they read that made them want to go to graduate school. We also have professors in dialogue, where we would get two professors debating a particular topic or a particularly literary work, to really focus on the things that students are interested in about professors that they never get a chance to hear. We have a career panel. We know students are really interested in careers for obvious reasons, and especially in a lot of majors, students don't get major-specific career advice. And so we invite alumni to come back and talk to students about their major, how they use, say, the English major or the physics major to create their career. We try to have a range of people, starting from people in their 50s who are very successful in their careers, to people just out of school, people who maybe graduated last year and got a job at Google. That was one person we had come talk to us. We have panels on getting admitted to graduate school. We have panels on skills that are necessary, not just for the major, but for college in general, like writing. So that's item 3. And the fourth item is we take trips. We take trips to Berkeley resources that students might not have visited yet, like the Berkeley Art Museum, the Bancroft Library, the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories. There's a whole range of possibilities. There are 28 museums on campus, which you may not have known. And so different departments will take students to different places. So that's what the syllabus looks like. You generally have an hour or 2 commitment every week. There is no homework, no exams, no writing, no reading, nothing. All you have to do to get your 1 credit is participate and fill out a survey at the end of the semester, because student feedback is incredibly important to us. When we read our surveys every semester in the training program, we sat down and thought, how do we have to change the syllabus next semester to respond to student feedback? And for example, one bit of feedback we got was that everyone was very hungry. So we started serving dinner. But there were lots of other things we did as well. So when the program expands, there are going to be 10 departments. And this is not, you know, our goal is to expand to as many departments as will have us. But the Chancellor and the Vice Chancellor have supported us for 10 departments. We're also in the middle of a $40 million capital campaign to raise funds for the program. So the 10 departments are history, ethnic studies, sociology, architecture, ESPM, which you probably know is environmental science, policy, and management, but I didn't. Physics, math, music, philosophy, and English. Did I cover them all? Yes, I think so. So in those departments, Berkeley Connect will be available as soon as Telebear starts. So we're going to be recruiting all over the place. And on our website, there'll be, there's a button where you can sign up to get sent information. You'll be able to sign up via Telebears for a group that suits your particular temporal needs. So whenever you're free, you can choose a group. And the other thing that we do in establishing the program is we want to make sure to recruit not only people in the major, but lower division students as well. We don't want to leave them out. So you don't have to be a major to sign up. All you really have to have is a general interest in that field of study. So, you may do the ESPM, Berkeley Connect as a freshman and decide, I really want to be an economics major, and that's totally fine. A lot of people, music, I think that was the one I left out. We've talked to the people in music, and one of the things they say is they have so many non-majors taking their courses because so many people are, either their parents have said, I just can't accept you majoring in music, or they want to be a business major, or they want to have a more practical major, but they're passionate about music. So we especially want to reach out to those people so that they can participate in a program like this. And that's true of all the majors. And we have a video that I'd like to show, and then I can answer any questions that you might have about the program. So if we can just scroll down. This is a video that a student made, a student called Jared Meyer, who graduated last year. He's now a high school teacher, and he was a videographer. And he made this video, and it includes comments from students participating in the program, as well as the fellows, who are the English graduate students. So maybe we should start.
Bear with us for a moment while we test this out.
Okay. I think the sound would be going now.
sometimes seem inaccessible in a large lecture hall, where at private universities, you're on a more individual basis with those professors. But now with the training program, you can go and meet with them in a training study break and have one-on-one time with a professor that you may otherwise never get to meet with in a 150-person lecture hall.
The training program in general has been kind of like English major therapy, because I definitely have had my fair share of existential major crises. And I know that I have other students there, and I have a mentor there, and I have the professor in the English department there to really help me get through that. I kind of understand what it is that I really love about English and literature.
When I was a freshman, there are a lot of things that I didn't know about the English department, and I don't know, since it's such a big department, it's kind of hard to get to know people, especially when you're in your first year.
I was at the kind of crisis of faith, so to speak, and I didn't know if I wanted to stay at this school in this major, or in the area. And I spoke with my mentor a few times, showed him more meetings, kind of reflected more on what we did in those classes. And I started having a more positive attitude. I remember why I love doing this, love studying this.
It makes you feel like there's somebody who's already been through kind of the same things that you have. And, it's nice to have somebody who really
twist of utopia. And it was so exciting to see the students there. I got there 30 minutes early and they were all already there and all dressed up. And just talking to them while we waited for the play to begin, I realized that it was the first time a lot of them had been to the theater before.
One of the things that I really liked about getting to be a mentor was just exposing students to the resources that there are here. But so often you ask them, have you been to the PFA? Have you been to Bain? Have you been to the Bancroft? Have you even been out to the Campbell Community? And they say, no, I always sort of meant to go there or do that or something like that. And so having a chance to expose them to those riches, to those resources that we have here on campus is really special.
When I started as a training mentor in the fall, I had a completely different participation project. Once I switched to this new project, which is focused on education and pedagogy and narratives about learning, I'm just having such a great time working on my project. Thanks to inspiration from my Trinity students, I know absolutely that I will finish.
It's been a great thing to be able to talk about in my application materials, in the interview that I had, in the jobs that I ended up landing. I ended up talking about the training program for a few minutes because it was an interview with a small liberal arts college, and it's really important to be able to make the case for why I would be able to flourish in that kind of atmosphere coming from such a big place. Honestly, I think the most important thing for the students I have is just getting to interest. I think all of the work that they do today, about text in the training program, about English literature, about careers, is finally secondary to coming together as a group and talking to each other about their lives and about what it is to be Berkeley, what it is to be listening to it all piece together. But when I see them really get talking to each other about how they live, what their interests are, how they can support each other, I think that's when the magic of the training program really happens.
So, I think Jared did a really beautiful job. And I wanted to say belatedly a thank you to Quinn Shen, who is the person who contacted me about coming to see you. And I'm really not very many faculty get a chance to see you guys in operation. And so I feel very honored by that. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to talk to your constituents about Berkeley Connect and encourage them to sign up. I know that it's only 10 departments so far, so there may be people who don't have a department that they're particularly interested in as of yet, but we'll be expanding more as soon as we raise the money. I've been going out and talking to alumni. I was in LA for a fundraising event a couple of weeks ago, and the alumni are super excited about the program. They keep coming up and saying to me, if only there had been a program like this when I was at Berkeley. And so hopefully they're going to unlock their purses and help us out. So I'd love to answer any questions that you might have about the program or how it works. And yeah.
Great. I saw Senator Meek and then Senator Mullen.
Hi, I was just wondering how those 10 programs were chosen.
Oh, well, they were chosen largely, George Bressauer and I worked on selecting them, and we were trying to choose a really good variety of programs so that there would be, you'll notice they don't come from any one college or any one division. We tried to have representatives from across campus so that we could appeal to as many students as possible. And you know, certain departments there are logistical issues with that hopefully will resolve. MCB was one of those because it's such a big department. So that's how we did it. We were really aiming to get a very broad swath of the campus by picking these particular programs.
Senator Mullen.
Hi, thank you so much. We actually ASUC used to run a very similar program called
Oh,
the
really?
Undergraduate Mentorship Program, which I took my freshman year. We were at the UV's office. So it's good to see something like this moving institutionalized within the university because I really grew and went through the program itself. I was curious to see in what ways, and maybe as you grow, you can elaborate, but are we looking at professional schools as well? My mentorship was actually with a person in the graduate school with policy at Goldman. And I know when it comes to students and departments, a lot of times they're looking at professional schools or maybe Pause, Holt,
Yes.
and Golden School. And there's a lot of graduate students who are really interested because they come from these social science backgrounds or business backgrounds or even sometimes science and policy. So I know that you said you're growing, but in what ways maybe can we even connect with like, current English students with current law students or that kind of way?
Yeah, one of the, I should have said earlier that the graduate students receive a fellowship for doing this. So they are, we're called, they're graduate fellows or Berkeley Connect fellows. And so we are working with the idea of professional schools as of now, but their structure of graduate education is so different that it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But we know that that's it's one of our goals because we know how many students are interested in the professional schools. Maybe, they're not majoring in business, but maybe they want to get an MBA. So we'd like to find ways to, if not have the Berkeley Connect program in a professional school, to partner with them so that students, like you said, students who are interested in law or interested in business or interested in public policy can find ways to connect with, especially grad students in those programs. So yeah, that's an ongoing project.
We have time for 1 to 2 more questions. Okay. Hey, there are 3 hands. So I saw your hand first.
You take the lead right there.
Okay, Senator Golan and Senator Camila.
Yeah, just want to thank you for coming and also like, so with the 10 programs that y'all chose, I would think that I would like to see like more students of color involved with this, and especially particularly like with the African American Studies Department or like the Ethnic Studies Department.
Oh, ethnic studies is one of
Oh, they
ours.
are?
Yeah, I made it. I'm trying to learn the alphabetical order of
Oh,
these,
sorry.
and so I used to say them in terms of division order, and so I got a little mixed up. So ethnic studies is one of our programs. So that's starting in January, absolutely. And just if I'm not cutting you off, just to say about Berkeley Connect and diversity, that's one of a very important goal for Berkeley Connect is to help increase diversity on campus. And I think one of the ways that we have found in the pilot program that we do that is by increasing retention. And retention is a big issue in terms of increasing diversity on campus. And so a lot of times, especially with, say, first-generation students, people who come to Berkeley whose families don't have any experience with universities, sometimes find that it's a little bit hard to adjust to the environment here. And they can sometimes not have a mentor or a person to talk to who will, just explain some basics or just really make you feel less alienated and less isolated. And so Berkeley Connect really hooks you up with not only a mentor, but also finds ways of connecting you to professors, which is another big goal. One of the things that we always say about the program is that the mentors act as mentors, but they also act as facilitators. They facilitate the relationship between undergraduates and faculty members. And they do that in a couple of ways. I've had so many students say to me, I was really nervous to come talk to you in your office hours. And now I think of myself as a nice person. I don't think of myself as intimidating. But but I think back to when I was a student in college, it took a lot of courage for me to go to the first office hours I went to. So our fellows, when they meet with the students, talk about how do you make the most of office hours? What do you do when you get there? Because sometimes, you go there and people don't quite know what to do with the time. And so they talk about strategies for making the best use of your professor possible. What can you do when you get in there to make a really productive conversation? And so that's another thing that the mentors really work on is connecting students with professors. And they also do things like sometimes a mentor will get to know a student and realize that he or she has a strong interest in something that's a specialty of a faculty member. And then, they write an email to the faculty member and say, I have an undergraduate I'd really like to introduce you to, he or she is going to come to your office hours, but just setting up the relationship. And so just to go, wrap back around to your original question is, In terms of increasing diversity on campus, I think two things. One, we help with retention by helping students to feel more at home at Berkeley and to helping students to build connections with each other. And two, I was just writing an email before I came here I got a message saying, would I be involved in interviewing prospective students? And I suddenly thought, we really should be involved with talking to prospective students of all kinds and telling them about Berkeley Connect, because that might be one of the things that makes a student of color or a first-generation student decide, maybe I'll give Berkeley a try instead of going to a smaller private university where they might get more attention. They might say, well, there's the Berkeley Connect program in ESPM, and I am really committed to environmental science. So, I'd love to join that program, and maybe that will be the thing that tips the balance in favor of Berkeley as opposed to a smaller private school, which is, we're always competing with those schools to get new students to come here.
So we have about 20 seconds left.
Oh, sorry.
And so I do want to be cognizant of the fact that we have the Red Cross here to give their presentation also. So if in the next 13 seconds we can do a motion to extend time, we can get to more questions, or we also talk offline. What is the preference of the Senate? There's no. Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll be quick.
Okay, so I saw Senator Kleinman and Senator Yulin both have questions.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming. I think this is a great program. I know I'm working orientation in Cal State. They have people group up by their major interest.
Yes.
I think this is amplified and even more incredible. You talked about that, with the opening up of the new department, there's going to be a lot of recruiting done. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more specifically about how recruiting is being done. I think that also touches upon Jessica's question.
Yeah, sure. So we're recruiting in a number of ways. There are my office, which really consists of me and the associate director, Michelle Rapkin. We're going into the dorms. We're talking to, we've just met with the people who run Residential Life. So we'll be meeting with students and having some events in the dorms to talk to them. We're talking to students in the fall program for freshmen. And within the departments, the fellows and the directors will be visiting classes, large lecture classes, and distributing our flyers and talking about what the program's going to be like. So we sort of have a two-pronged effort, one to reach non-majors and one to reach majors. And we'll also be sending emails to all incoming junior transfers, all incoming freshmen, and really, you'll probably get an email. We'll be sending a lot of emails. Those are, if anyone has other ideas, this is part of our recruiting effort, is coming to talk to you guys. And if you have other ideas about how we could recruit, feel free to email me. It's mnolan@berkeley.edu. I'd love to hear from any of you if you have further questions or you'd like to.
Thank you.
Senator Camila.
Hi, thanks again for coming to us. I think this is a wonderful program. And I'm from the sciences, I'm an MCD major, and we've been working to create graduate student, undergraduate mentorship programs that are also focused in research. There's two things I wanted to ask you about. One is how we can work with Berkeley Connect so that even if you're not actually expanding the program, we can work with existing graduate student mentorship programs to kind of give them the structure that you all have. And two, what is the running cost that would need to be done to expand into another department? And yeah, essentially this.
Yeah, so quickly, the cost of the program is between $500 and $700 per semester per student. It's a very cheap program when you're talking about the kinds of money that gets. I mean, it doesn't sound cheap, but it is. We would love to partner with existing or current or in creation graduate mentorship programs in departments like MCB, especially because that's a department that they have so many tasks for their graduate students. They don't have room for Berkeley Connect Fellows because they're just so big and so impacted by student demand. So if you'd like to get in touch with me about that, I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we still have 2 minutes on the clock. If there's maybe one more question. There's no.
Go ahead.
Hi. Hello. So I noticed that you brought up first gen and students of color, and I think that's really good. I've noticed that some of the majors that you did address are highly concentrated with students of color. Well, some of them and some aren't. But then, how will you continue to grow your program to really help efforts of retention for students of color in terms of just different majors? Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I see what you're saying. And one of the things that we'll be doing is that when we're thinking about in our next expansion, will be to 10 or more departments. Some of the majors that these students major in are small majors, right? And so we're going to have, we didn't do it the first time around because it's complicated, but we will be having some majors partnering with other majors for a Berkeley Connect program. So a quick example is French and Comp Lit. They automatically go together. They're already interested in doing it. So some of these smaller majors are going to partner together and have a single Berkeley Connect program that hopefully draws students from both majors. So that's one thing we're going to do. We'd also, I think, as we move along, like to partner with student groups who are interested in these questions and issues. So if anyone would like to get in touch with us and have us, we could meet with you, or we could come to your group, or you know, we're all about student feedback. That's why we do these surveys at the end of the semester. I mean, to get your credit for the course, you have to do the survey, which isn't just us being mean, it's that we want your feedback so much. So we get about 99% participation in our survey, which means that the data we get from you guys is really good. And so we'd love to hear more. And if anybody's group would like us to come talk to them, or you have ideas for us about the, you know, our next layer of expansion, please just get in touch. Yeah.
Okay, we're actually out of time.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
So I'd like to welcome up now our presenters from the Red Cross.
Okay, hi friends. My name is Michelle Kearney. Some of you may know me from my work in the service community. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the CEO for the American Red Cross Blood Drive to come and speak about the blood shortage, but instead we have Suraj, who organizes the blood drive on campus. So we're going to be talking about SB 14, which I believe you guys will be voting on next week, which is a bill asking the ASUC to formally oppose the FDA policy that men who have sex with men cannot donate blood. I'm not sure if you guys have looked over the bill at all, but I'd just like to talk about it a little bit with you and maybe open up for some questions. Oh, sorry. I'm going to be loud enough. MSM, as it's called, short for men who have sex with men, the policy was instated by the FDA during the AIDS scare back in 1983, which made sense at the time because we couldn't test the blood for AIDS, we didn't know what was going on. But after 30 years of technological advancement where we test all the blood for AIDS, and there's a 0.1 out of 2 billion chance of a false negative, the policy has still not been changed. The American Blood Centers, the AABB, and the American Red Cross, all the three main organizations in the Blood Advisory Committee of the nation, have asked the FDA to repeal this policy multiple times. Back in 2006, they had a hearing with the FDA, and the FDA said, listen, we're working on it, we'll do some more studies because we're still not convinced by your science. But it's been 7 years. No studies have come about since. Senator Warren from Massachusetts has been putting pressure with 86 other Congress members on the FDA to be like, where's the science, where's the data that you promised? Other prominent organizations like the American Medical Association and the American Osteoporosis Association have also come out against the MSM ban. Many of them calling it just a discriminatory policy that's not based in any rational science. And I mean, there's just a lot of momentum picking up on it right now, and it's really detrimental, as Suraj is going to speak, to our blood supply. We turn away nearly 2.6 million possible donors because of this. And Suraj will be speaking on the Actually, yeah. Do you wanna?
Yeah. So I'm gonna speak a little bit to the blood shortage that's currently ongoing. The Bay Area region in particular and the nation at large is currently in the midst of one of the largest blood shortages in recent memory. Every 2 seconds, someone is in need of blood, and less than 38% of the population actually donates blood. So the need versus the amount that we have in our stores is very disparate. The blood supply according to the AABB, the blood supply has dropped to critically low levels, and so this policy, which turns away millions of potential donors, is significantly impeding our ability to save lives. Essentially, each unit of blood saves up to 3 lives. A single car accident can require up to 20 units of blood. So this policy, which turns away millions of donors, has a huge impact. And to talk a little bit about how this is affecting our campus, I've been involved in organizing the blood drives, all the blood drives here on campus, for roughly 2 years now. So this is an issue that I have dealt with personally. I have friends that have been turned away from donating. I have been approached about why someone can't donate blood, about how they feel about this, and it's not pleasant to them that they're told that their blood is quote unquote dirty, that they feel like that. And so if the ASUC were to take a position on this, it would really send a strong statement to the campus community that about how we feel about this. Yeah. And we're open to any questions. No, you're not going.
Yeah, like Saraj was saying, there's 38% of the population in the Bay Area is eligible to donate, which takes out the people who are international students, who have gotten tattoos or piercings, who travel internationally, have been to a malaria country or anything. So 38 are eligible to donate, only about 3% actually donate. Of all the blood in the Bay Area, 24% comes from colleges and high schools. And actually Cal is one of the largest blood donation centers in Northern California. Yeah, feel proud. So we personally feel like it's time for our community to stop feeling helpless and hopeless and actually take action and take a stance on this issue. That's not an American Red Cross policy, although we're students in the American Red Cross at Cal. It's a larger issue that's affecting our community, especially in the Bay Area. Just to put this into perspective, because we're in such a low level, critically low supply of blood, and we're in such a blood shortage, we have to ship in blood from other areas, and our blood donation pool does not match our blood population that it's serving. And that doesn't look good. When you're getting blood from Kansas, and the population of Kansas does not match the population in the Bay Area, it's a huge issue, and we're alienating ourselves by not allowing men who have sex with men to donate blood. This is also not a trivial thing that we're addressing the FDA about either. A lot of other countries, 21 other countries as of July 2013, have changed their stance from a lifetime deferral to something, even South Africa group has a 6-month deferral, and they have an 11% AIDS prevalency there, which is a lot higher than here. So, I mean, the U.S. is one of the last countries to actually take a stance or revise the MSM policy from a lifetime ban to something more reasonable. And we'd really love the ASUC support, along with all the other momentum that's going on right now. But I feel like, especially in the Bay Area, this is an issue that is close to our community. We can actually take a stance. We have the numbers to back up that this really affects the blood supply, this affects lives. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Questions?
Yeah, I have questions for our presenters. Senator Wojcik?
This wasn't a question as much just to say, like, I just want to thank you all for coming and this presentation. I really support this. This is something that needs to be addressed. When I first heard about this policy when I was in middle school, it was just something that was really stupid to me. So I'm glad that you all are addressing this. One thing I was going to add on to that is just ask, I guess, where are you at in terms of Alright, yeah, I was gonna like, in terms of administrators, if you also, like, where do you brought up about this issue?
I personally have talked to a couple FDA lawyers, making sure that this is not a trivial thing before I brought it to you, that I'm not just asking ASUC support for something that's not going to change. They're strongly supportive of this, and they really feel like Canada just changed their policy this summer. The US is never far behind Canada on FDA policies, so that's why I brought it up with Caitlin and Justin and Emily. But I have not gone out to talk to administrators about this yet. I wanted first to make sure that it's okay with the ASUC. I feel like ASUC support is key before I go out and addressing anything else, along with our senators that are helping us. But if you guys have any ideas for where to go next, we're always open.
I was gonna say running Senator Solomon, so once again, this is something I really feel strongly about, so I'm definitely on this and stuff, so yeah.
Thank you so much.
Also, as we're contemplating other questions that we could ask, I think now that you all have been introduced to the issue, it's definitely something that you should get in touch with the bill's authors about if you'd like to become co-sponsors of the bill. Bills look much better when they pass unanimously in the Senate with large co-sponsorship from both senators, elected officials, and student organizations. So if you're really interested in supporting the cause, you can lend your name and your title to this to make it more impactful than it was, provided that we pass it, which I hope we do.
Oh, just to add on to that, we have the director of the Cal Service Network also co-sponsoring this bill as well. She just added on. So.
Any other questions for our presenters while they're here with us? If not, hopefully you all found this informative. Please do reach out if you have any other questions between now and when the committee will meet about this on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Great, so we have finished our special orders for the evening. We're now moving on to legislative officer reports, but since we don't have any, we'll move on. Yes, question?
Can I request for a special order right now?
Sure.
So I wrote a bill, and it's also co-sponsored by Justin Tong, and it's a bill in awareness of the crisis in North Korea. And coincidentally, the note. Am I loud enough? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So I want to request a special order for the Nomads and the Link headquarters to come in and speak to us on October 9th. So they will be in the Bay Area, and it's just like a really nice coincidence that they will be here when we're going to be voting on this bill. So I feel like it's a very important cause, and I just wanted to request a special order for them to come in and speak.
So the special order is requested. Can you confirm that they will be able to come on Monday?
Oh, yes. And I've spoken to Link, Liberty in North Korea, and they have already contacted the headquarters.
Great. So, is there a motion to approve that special order as it's requested?
I move to approve.
It's been moved. Is there a
Second.
I second.
Second that.
Senator Snow second.
So it's been moved and it's been seconded that we have the special order for October 9th. Senator Rowland, any questions?
Y'all have a request for special order as well.
I would request with senators that we be judicious about the way that we ask for special orders, primarily because given the amount of work that's going to be done in committee on Monday, I anticipate that the Wednesday Senate meeting will be extremely long. So adding multiple special orders beyond the two that we already have onto what will already be a very long Senate meeting is going to make it a really long evening for you all. And if it's not absolutely time sensitive, it would be great for us to spread out the special orders. We talked about this during Senate training, right? We want to spread out the special orders so that we're not cramming them all into one meeting, making senators and community members and others wait for the succession of presentation.
This special order will take no longer than 5 minutes. The presentation will. I'll make sure it's not like 30 minutes long.
Okay, what is the special order on?
Support the Ignite campaign.
Okay, so is there a motion to add that special order to our, is this for October 9th?
Next, yeah.
It has to be October 9th?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Can that just go under public comment, or if you were to have like?
Can a public comment have a slideshow?
Yes, I mean, it would be a special order, and it is appropriate for it to be a special order. I'm just cautioning everybody about the amount of time that we would be here next week.
Second.
Okay, so to move it in second, so this is with the understanding there's going to be a 10-minute special order as opposed to a half-hour special order.
Yes.
Okay. Other comments?
Yeah, is there a process if we could tell the special orders to make those like shorter than half an hour?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
so
say,
the
like,
bylaws
20 minutes?
specify that they can go up to half an hour, unless it's extended by the Senate. If you all would like to set a lower time for the presenters, you can do that at the time of making the motion for the special order.
Can we do that now? I feel like doing that now and telling them that we can advance better than like, I think about say, instead of 30 minutes, go 20. You know what I mean?
Well, yes, I would have to defer to the people who are requesting the special orders on that to see if it's reasonable for their groups to fit their presentation within that time. Because President Pepito does not appear to be here at the moment, I wouldn't be comfortable limiting the SIS presentation to anything less than 30 minutes in case they're counting on that time.
Correct, that's right.
We
just make it clear that we have 4 rows and they will expect to.
I think we have 3.
Oh, 3 rows.
Okay.
Sorry, but just can you just reiterate to them that we have like.
Yeah, so what I would ask then of the people who are bringing in special orders is that they have up to 30 minutes, and it is absolutely not necessary for them to use all of that time. Concise presentations are welcome, and you can ask questions during that time. They do not have to take 30 minutes. Senator Truax?
Yeah, and I just want to remind everyone that the external bills, you do have time during external committee to present your bill to everyone. So that's good.
Yeah, also as a side note on that, we'll get to this under extended committee reports, but it's probable that we're going to try to start external earlier this week because there's going to be so much. And so that will require collaboration among the committee chairs. But again, if you feel external would be a good place for the presentation to happen, I would also encourage you to consider that. So it's been moved, seconded 10 minutes. If there are no objections, abstentions.
So if I'm correct, if I'm correct, so like if the special work takes 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes for the presentation and questions?
Yes.
Well, I'll say 15 minutes.
If it's 10 minutes.
Oh, well, 10 minutes. It's fine.
The motion has been made, we have to amend the special order. So this is why I would ask if we're going to do this sort of work that happen primarily in committee, because this is where the substantive debate on the bill generally is going to happen. Especially if it's something like Ignite that has tremendous support from UCSA. If we're doing like an educational presentation about it, I don't think it's going to be something where there's like a lot of tension or opposition to the bill necessarily. I would hope that there's not. But I also, again, I do want to urge you all to consider that there are many other controversial or less consensus-oriented bills that are going to be up for discussion, and that if we can streamline the discussion at all, it would be great for all the community members who are going to show up to try to talk about their bills during public comment, for all the people who are going to be doing special orders and may not have to wait depending on the volume of public comment and length of discussion. Again, maybe just want us to be judicious with our time. Senator Murphy.
If Senator Ioma's concern is having the rest of the senators view the special order as well and get educated on this topic, would it be possible to have that presentation recorded and like available for view at like every senator's leisure who's not on external?
So that would be something that the committee would have to work out internally. If we can come up with the means to record it and post it, it would be in line with the direction the Senate is going in terms of making the things that happen here transparent. So I would recommend and support that. How are we feeling on special orders? Are we comfortable with the 3? We want to amend the time limits on any of them before we move on. Okay. So if we're done with special orders, then please speak amongst yourselves and coordinate to figure out when the best time to do these is. I don't know.
I was just gonna say, is there a possibility to have the time in which special orders happen so that group necessity of special order needs to have all that means would have to be accommodated within the session?
You're saying that the special orders collectively will not take more than an hour or something? Or?
So that the understanding is we normally have maybe 2 special orders a week, and then for instance, if we needed to run 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, it would take. And I don't know if it's 2 or 4.
I mean, each special order needs to be approved by a two-thirds vote of the Senate individually, and so it's not like you can automatically have 2 special orders every week. So, okay, if there are no other questions about special orders, though, we'll move on to sort of legislative officer reports. So because we don't have any legislative officers appointed, we will then move on to standing committee reports. I know that standing committees didn't meet on Monday, so I don't know that you all have a lot to like report on necessarily, but I do want to take this opportunity to have a brief discussion on what we can do to work together to make sure that external has time to discuss everything that's going to be up for discussion on Monday night. Senator Truex and I have discussed outside of Senate the possibility of starting at 7 as a desirable time to allow all that discussion to happen because there's a lot. And so with that said, is this something that the Senate feels comfortable working with the temporary committee chairs on, so that temporary committees, to the extent that they overlap with the external committee, are not happening during that time? I saw Senator Muhammad and Mullen.
I'm just gonna offer people or those through. Like I know you're like in this video already, and it's probably just the chair. So we can like express that.
For constitutional review.
Okay, so here, really quickly,
So yeah, if you would like to table the bill, that would actually happen in the committee. And so what you would do is just let Senator Truex know in advance that you're comfortable tabling the bill. She would express that at the beginning of the meeting and say, I've gotten confirmation from XYZ authors of bills that they would like to table them, so I would move that we table 1, 2, 3, 4 bills this week. And that will leave you with a smaller pool of bills.
yeah, so just so everyone knows, the bills that are present for external committee on Monday are there were 4 from this past that were on the agenda that were gonna happen on Monday. There's 2 that are tabled, which is Catherine's and Silverlee's bills, so that's 6. And then there's 4 more, so that's 10. So if any of you would love to table your bills, I would be open. But if not, like, we're definitely down to talk about all of them since we're starting at 7. Wait, is everyone cool if we're starting at 7?
Yeah, just as a note, you can table something up to 3 times, and the bill can still survive and come back to Senate. So if it's necessary to do that, we can. Please, though, you work with Senator Truex off the floor to coordinate which bills can and cannot be tabled so that you all have a better idea. Senator Lee?
my concern with the earlier starting time is, are we going to be able to like ask you to have certain bills discussed at later times? Because I just know for some of the community members that the bills will be affecting, they already have like meetings on Mondays at 7.
Yeah, definitely. We can coordinate that offline, and I can like place you at a later time in bill discussion. Definitely. Yeah.
Senator Muhammad?
My concern isn't necessarily time, but like spaces. I know because we tabled, tabled a lot of stuff from this past Monday, so we have like 15 groups coming through for funding. So, I mean, we can barely accommodate anyone on stage as it is. So I don't really know what's the
So the reason that we have the committee meetings in Anahead is so that you all can move back and forth to different committees and be able to be present with your bill so that you can explain it and go back to your actual committee. I think probably what would be desirable for all of the bills concerned, finance, external, and otherwise, that we would have the group that is there to address the bill inside at one time, and if we can urge others to sit in some loungy place that I'm not exactly sure where that would be, but to have people come at a specific time so that we don't have 15 groups at the same time in the same space. And I know that can be difficult given the way that bill timing sometimes works out, but we are really limited in terms of space constraints, and the other option is that we book
So Conrad will be starting at 8 next week, just because we have J Council, like, there's a lot of them in interviews.
Okay, so I do want to remind everyone that given the number of temporary committees that are still in, we are missing all of our legislative officers, and the 6th week is the last week that we can approve these before business and Senate crimes and termite people. If we don't approve an attorney general, for example, by the 6th week, we may not consider other business of any sort until we've approved the attorney general, right? So please don't take the temporary committees lightly, because many of these positions do need to be filled, and they're very important to the functioning of the ASUC. So if you all are changing the time of your committees, don't do that within your committee without consulting with the rest of the Senate first, because we need to make sure that people are not wrapping up absences in one committee or another because there's been a scheduling conflict that no one was talking to each other about. It's also important that people who sign up to be on a committee are able to have their voice heard in that selection process, so please don't make put people in that situation where they have to choose between a standing committee and the temporary committee that they sign up to be on. So I'm going to rely on the committee chairs to work that out amongst yourselves. I'm going to plan to reserve rooms for 8, 8:30 for a large room, and then 7 for a large room. Okay. Is there anything else we want to cover under standing committee reports loosely interpreted? Okay, so let's move on then. We don't have anything in consent calendar because nothing came out of committee this week. We also don't have anything we need in consideration because there's nothing to pull from consent calendar to put onto immediate consideration. So, powering through this part of the meeting. So as far as I know, we don't have any old business that remains unaddressed. We're now we now have special committee reports. Are there any special committee reports from temporary committee groups that you all would like to talk to us about? I know everything got thrown off on Monday, so don't feel obligated to create something. Okay, so if there are no
Temporary committees 3 and 4 are having their final interviews Thursday from 6 to 8 and 8 to 10. So we should have decisions by the end of Thursday night for 5 positions.
Beautiful. Okay. Any other temporary committee group reports? If there are none, let's move on to ASUC representative reports. Again, this is understood that we don't exactly have a concrete policy right now on ASUC representatives, but if you are sort of functioning as a de facto representative to a community, you can report back here. Okay. The last section on the agenda then is elected official announcements. So we'll do the same thing that we did previously. This is just easier for me if we can start at one end. We started on our end last time, so we'll start on this end. And we'll just go around one at a time. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to report that the 3 or so straight weeks of Jewish holidays has come to its conclusion. So thanks for bearing with me week after week as I explained the somewhat interesting, somewhat mundane Jewish holidays. But cool thing, we're having on Friday evening a Jewish student meeting hosting a homecoming Shabbat. And there's a special guest, same special guest we had, so we were on board with Chancellor Dirks and not able to come. But if you want to see him again, we have Shabbat dinner at 7. It's open to the entire campus community. It'd be a cool way to see what Shabbat is if you've never done one before. So at 7 o'clock for dinner at Hillel. You guys are all welcome to come. Thank you.
Just want to recognize that yesterday was actually Nigerian Independence Day, October 1st. As you see Solomon right now rocking the attire, can you please stand, Solomon, show him the attire? You recorded me?
Okay, so this is going off of what I presented last week. So there is Innovation, which is an event held by DEC, which is the Design Engineering Council. And the event is tomorrow from 11 to, I believe, like 4, 2 or 3. And it's on like Campanile Esplanade. And basically, It's awesome because they're starting the design concentration next semester, so then the design minor will be started in 2015. And we wanted to just let you all know that this is happening, so let your community groups know. Anybody can sign up for the design concentration, so it's open to all majors. It's going through the College of Engineering, but like you can sign up regardless of what major you are. Also, Beta Alpha Psi, which is a pre-professional business fraternity, is having a Meet the Firms event tomorrow. It's through the Career Center as well, but big firms such as like Oracle, Dropbox, EA is coming, so it's open to all years, all semesters. They're opening up for internship for summer and as well as full time.
I apologize for the quality of our audio equipment. As you know, EDP is not exactly rolling in money, and we're running low on money in Senate only as well. So there are limited spaces that we can pull resources from. If I could create money out of nowhere, I would give you all the best audio equipment for your Senate meetings that I possibly can, but we are working in the constraints of a very constrained budget. We'll do our best to make sure that the microphones are properly calibrated. For now, please do bear with us and be sure to speak and don't be afraid to project into the microphone. Remember that after the microphone, you would have to speak with outside voices anyway, and so if that's what it takes for you to be heard in the microphone and to be audible in the podcast, please do step up to that occasion and make sure that your constituents can hear you in our recorded meetings.
So I was gonna wait until my office had enough headway on this, but we finally do. So I just wanted to announce that my office is working on creating a startup incubator here on campus, like an instituted startup incubator, and it's for students across all disciplines and in all majors with ideas, not just in engineering or in business, but throughout all different types of companies. And so if anybody's interested in working with us on that, or if they're interested in just finding more out about it, definitely get in contact with me because we have a lot of people in my office working on it, and we really want to make sure that it goes through. So, yeah.
Hey y'all, next week is National Coming Out and Ally Week, which is a really big deal for the queer community. Obviously, on Thursday night, you and Anna head from 7:30 to 9:30, we're having a big queer event. It's always a lot of fun, lots of cool performers. I don't know if Reina's coming, but hopefully she is, And then Friday is actual National Coming Out Day, so being a really good ally and being there for any of your friends that might choose to come out to you, or if you're queer, come out to someone you're close to.
So in that same vein, I'd just like to announce that tonight, during our very meeting, QJU was voted in as a member group of the JSU. I wish I could have been there, but I couldn't. And we're very excited about them being a part of our organization. And just to reiterate what I mentioned last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, we will be having a coming out event as well, Friday night. It's a Shabbat dinner and rainbow dedication as well. Thank you.
So on October 10th, from 7 to 8 p.m. in Janelle 259, we're doing a graduate student reach out to undergrads. So if any of your undergrads are in any science-related major, it could be from engineering, MCB, etc. There's going to be a bunch of graduate students. There'll be refreshments, and just kind of talk about the professional track after college, and also some more options for research. October 10th in Janelle 259.
So I just wanted to announce that right now this week is what is traditionally known as Homecoming Week, but actually the name has changed this year to Family and Alumni Weekend, and the festivities actually started today. The University of California Rally Committee had a homecoming colloquium with speakers such as the women's basketball head coach and the rugby head coach, and then tomorrow there will be a night rally which will kick off all the Spirit festivities. It'll be starting at 7:45 at Bulls Hall. It continues through Creek Road down to each of the units, including Martinez, and then onto the campus. And then on Friday evening at 7 p.m. in Wheeler Auditorium will be the official homecoming rally, which will include performances from a lot of different multicultural groups, different student groups on campus, as well as all of the parts of the spirit groups. And then the other thing I wanted to announce is that I meant to announce this last week, but one of the sororities here on campus is doing something, actually, Emily and Karen's sorority off of Mega is doing Have a Heart Week, and they're selling cookies on Sprout, and all the money they'll be raising is going to domestic violence awareness. So if you guys are down to support that cause, I think the cookies are only $1.
Hello. So I have two quick things to tell you guys. So first of all, October 10th is actually the National/Independent Day of Taiwan. So just want to let you guys know that and let you all know that. And the second thing, from November 18th to 22nd, it's an International Education Week, and my office and one of the club I'm involved with, International Student Association at Berkeley, we're trying to host events every day that week. So if you're affiliated with any cultural groups and you have any great idea for any events, feel free to outreach to me.
Sorry, Karen, Lauren's announcement actually reminded me. On Friday and Saturday, during family and alumni weekend, Senator Shen and I actually will be holding Lower Sproul tours in conjunction with the ASUC. So we'll be holding tours that take people from Alumni House to the Lower Sproul redevelopment, the Great Detention Bench, the Korean War Memorial, basically describing all of the construction, what it's going to look like, what it will mean for student life for current students, but alumni, parents, family, because there'll be a lot of questions. So we're doing tours on Friday at 1 and Saturday, or Friday from 1 to 3, I think, and Saturday from 11 to 2. So if people are interested, they can kind of mosey into that area, and Senator Shen and I will be doing tours.
Great. So if that's all we have for elected official announcements, I'll take our last roll call of this meeting. Senator Chow. Senator Trump.
Here.
Senator Kleinman. President. Senator Woolman. President. Senator Kong. Senator Lee. Here. Senator Mohammed. Senator Mullen. Present. Senator Boche. Senator Pacheco. Senator Kanya. Senator Quinn. Present. Senator Rocky. Here. Senator Shen. Senator Snom. Present. Senator Chan. Present. Senator Truax. Here. Senator Lee Here. Senator Wheat.
Present.
Senator